Welcome back to Sage and Stone Homestead. Levi and Heather here in the kitchen, and if we both look exhausted, it's because we are. We have spent several hours cutting up some turkey, and what we've done is cubed everything up, and it's time to grind it and also make a little bit of jerky.
So after spending months and months looking at different grinders online, we knew we didn't want the KitchenAid attachment grinder because that was a grinder that was more of an afterthought as an attachment, and we knew we were going to be grinding our own deer, our own turkey, our own goat, whatever. We didn't really know specifically which animals, but we knew we were going to have some larger animals to deal with and wanted something that could handle a lot more quantity of meat in one go without constantly having to take breaks to let a motor cool down or whatever. So this one about 2 or 3 years ago was the one that I ended up settling on. It was about $200, maybe $250. For the price, the reviews were the best that I could find, and what I really liked about it was the fact that it's air cooled with fans inside directed at the motor, and that was something I didn't see in a lot of them, at least a couple of years ago. One thing I really liked about this grinder is that it comes with a foot pedal. You're able to turn it on and off with that, and it makes stuffing sausage or the tubes that we store it in the freezer, makes it very convenient to be able to start and stop without using one of your hands, because you need both of them.
It acts like a third hand for you. It's great. Hey guys, so it's the next morning. I am much more well rested. I actually didn't realize how much turkey we had in the freezer, but it's going to be really nice to have it processed to a point where it's going to be super easy to cook with or super easy just to grab and go, like this turkey jerky here. So the cut of meat that is most often and most commonly used for jerky is the breast. It's basically the only cut of meat on the turkey that's worth cutting up for this specific type of jerky. You can use ground meat and different seasonings, and actually they make a jerky gun that pipes out ground turkey sticks or any kind of meat stick that you like. We might do that again in the future. We've done it before with some venison, but today we've just basically cut up the breast meat in order to make just regular jerky. So what I did was I laid out the breast meat, and I actually took off the tender. There's a smaller piece of meat underneath the breast, and that piece of meat has the grain going in several directions, and there's actually kind of a tendon down the middle of it, and it's not the most ideal piece to use for jerky. So I ended up dicing that up and adding it to the bucket for our ground turkey. But the larger piece of the breast I did place so that I could cut against the grain. This is really important because if you cut with the grain, your jerky is going to be a lot harder to eat. So if you've had some really tough jerky, there's a chance that either it was dehydrated too long or it was cut the wrong way. Cutting the meat against the grain helps keep it more tender. Basically, your knife has done the work for you and your teeth don't have to do as much work. I tried to keep my cuts at about an 1/8 inch thickness. I'm sure that I got some a little bit thicker than that, but I tried to keep everything at least under 1/4 inch. It's going to be important that I try to keep everything relatively consistent so that while it's in the dehydrator, it's going to dehydrate at a consistent rate. I'm going to place in the description box and probably in a visual here the recipe that I used for our jerky brine. I did double the recipe because I had a lot of turkey to deal with, so adjust that to your needs. So everything has been marinating overnight and it looks and smells delicious. This is the point where I need to lay everything out. I have a 9-tray dehydrator. It's actually the Excalibur dehydrator. We really love it, and I like that I got the 9-tray version as opposed, I think the smaller one might be a 5-tray, but it allows us to process some of our larger quantities of meat all at once. So it's pretty basic what I'm doing here. I'm just laying out the pieces of meat on the tray, nice and flat, not touching. Again, my main goal here is to get everything to dehydrate down relatively evenly. So we got around 9 trays of the turkey jerky loaded into the dehydrator. I'm gonna put the front face on and then set it for the jerky setting. So there's quite a few settings on this food dehydrator. The jerky setting is the highest that it goes. So you probably noticed that I do have my food dehydrator kind of in a corner over here. When I have it running, I do pull it away from the wall so that the fan can properly circulate the air. Inside the food dehydrator, on the jerky setting, it's going to get to 145 degrees Fahrenheit, and I'm going to leave the jerky in here for around 4 hours. I'm gonna check it and I'll let you know when I know that the jerky is done. As a side note here too, it is pretty tempting to go ahead and reuse the brine or the marinade. I would advise against doing it. You can do it, but the flavor is absolutely different. The meat takes up a lot of that salt from the soy sauce, and the jerky that is made using the brine a second time is not nearly as flavorful, so I wouldn't recommend reusing this. So it's been right at about 4 hours since we put the jerky in the dehydrator. I'm gonna turn it off so you can hear me a little bit better. And I'd like to show you what the jerky looks like when the time has gone by, but you know that the jerky is not quite ready. Here we have a pretty appetizing looking piece of jerky, and I'm sure it tastes great at this point, but it's not quite ready to go. Now, we're getting close, especially with this specific piece, but you can still feel that it's got a little bit of a jelly-like consistency on some of the thicker parts. But the most important thing is that when I bend it, it doesn't have, I guess you can see a little bit there. You can see a little bit of the white fibers coming through there. I am looking for that, but this isn't quite ready. It's still a little bit too floppy. This is one of the thicker pieces. This one is obviously not done. See, we're almost passing the bend test here. It's really close. This one might even actually be pretty well okay. I'm just gonna give it another little bit. Do you need something? This is not for you, kitty. Nope. So it's actually several hours later, but I only let the dehydrator go for another probably hour and a half, and most of the jerky is finished. So you can probably tell here that it looks pretty well translucent. I mean, as translucent as a piece of meat really can get. And this is the kind of consistency that I'm looking for. So it bends, but it doesn't snap, and you can see the white fibers at the bend. This is perfectly done. You'll eventually get a really good feel for the doneness of your jerky as you kind of play around with your dehydrator, but this one and a couple other pieces need to continue dehydrating. But as far as the rest of it, I'm going to be packing a lot of it up tonight while Levi finishes packaging up the grind.
So last night, instead of powering through and just getting it all over and done with, I decided to take a break, clean everything, go to sleep, resume today. After the turkey was able to sit in the fridge for about 24 hours to help the turkey cool down, help the fats cool down and kind of solidify again so that it could feed through properly the way it's intended to. Online, we saw a lot of suggestions to freeze all of the metal parts prior to using. It's not something we do because I personally haven't noticed enough of a difference.
We did it once.
Yeah, we did it once, and
but cooler meat is helping it feed better, huh?
yeah, cold meat definitely helps.
Good. One of our favorite ways to put away any of our dehydrated foods is by vacuum sealing. We have a Food Saver vacuum sealer. We love it a lot. Sometimes when you vacuum seal things with pointy edges, like some of this jerky, some of those edges can pierce through the plastic, and so a better option for something like this would be to use a mason jar, and for that we have this really neat attachment for our Food Saver that helps seal down the lid on the mason jar perfectly. sure you're wondering how much meat we wound up getting at the end of the processing. And all in all, how much poundage did we wound up with?
Pretty close to 50.
Well,
wet
there's
weight.
Wet weight?
Yeah, because
How many is in here?
there are 19 2-pound tubes,
Yes.
plus probably a little less than 2 pounds.
Yeah. Doesn't that work out to 40 by itself?
That's 40.
Oh yeah, and then I'm not the math brain. So 50, I don't know why I thought 60, but 50 is still really, really good. And I know some of you are probably wondering, Heather, you're just putting meat back in the freezer. I thought you were cleaning the freezer out. I'll tell you, these little tubes fit really well in the freezer, and having processed the meat, taking out the bones and all of that, it really does help condense freezer space, which is so valuable to us this time of year. So like I said, we started out with breasts and quarters, and in order to get that, we just skinned the birds. We didn't even gut them. And if you want to see how that process works, I have an older video. It's actually quite old. It's about 18 months old, but it's doing quite well. It's helping a lot of people out there learn how to dress their birds without plucking and without gutting. And if you'd like to see that, I'm gonna link it up here. Good night.